My psychotic ex threatened to end my family if I left, until I left anyway and he showed up at my dad's house where my brothers were armed. My name is Amber, and I'm 27 years old. The day I'm about to tell you about happened 3 months ago, but it feels like it was yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once. I met Derek when I was 23. He was charming, the kind of guy who opens doors and remembers your coffee order after meeting you once. He had this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. But when you're wearing rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. The first time he got angry, really angry, was about 6 months in. We were at a bar with friends, and some guy asked me for directions to the bathroom. Just directions. Derek didn't say anything at the bar, but when we got home, he threw his keys across the room and told me I was flirting. I wasn't. I tried to explain, but he wouldn't hear it. He punched a hole in my apartment wall that night. I should have left then. I know that now, but he cried afterward. He got down on his knees and sobbed and said he was sorry, that he'd never felt this way about anyone before, that the thought of losing me made him crazy. He said his dad used to hit his mom, and he swore he'd never be that guy. He begged me to give me another chance, so I did. The thing about people like Derek is they don't go from 0 to 100 overnight. It's gradual. So gradual you don't even notice you're being boiled alive until you're already cooked. He started checking my phone, just casually at first, looking over my shoulder when I texted. Then he wanted my passcode. When I hesitated, he accused me of hiding something. We fought about it for hours until I was so exhausted I just gave it to him. Then came the tracking app. He said it was for safety so he'd know I got to work okay. I thought it was weird, but he made it sound romantic, like he cared so much he needed to know I was safe. My friends started commenting on how much time I was spending with him. My best friend Jessica pulled me aside one night and asked if everything was okay. I laughed it off. Told her Derek and I were just in the honeymoon phase. She didn't look convinced. Derek didn't like Jessica. He said she was trying to break us up, that she was jealous I had found someone. He started getting upset whenever I made plans with her. It was easier to just cancel than deal with his mood for days afterward. That's how it happens. You start canceling plans, then you stop making them all together. A year into the relationship, I barely recognized my life. I'd stopped going to my book club, stopped having girls' nights. My sister Melissa called me less because Derek always seemed to be around when we talked, and I could never really say what I wanted to say. The first time he actually hit me was on our 1-year anniversary. We'd gone to this fancy restaurant and the waiter was friendly. Too friendly, according to Derek. He was quiet through dinner and I knew what was coming. When we got back to his place, he asked me why I was trying to embarrass him. I wasn't. I told him that. He slapped me across the face so hard I saw stars. Then came the apologies again, the tears, the promises. And like an idiot, I believed him. I started wearing makeup to cover bruises. Long sleeves in summer. I got good at lying about where injuries came from. Clumsy me, always walking into things. My family lived 2 hours away in a small town called Riverside. My dad, Robert, was a former Marine. My brothers, Jake and Connor, were both in their 30s and had families of their own. We'd always been close, but Derek made it harder and harder to visit. He'd pick fights before I was supposed to go home, make me feel guilty for leaving him alone. Eventually, I started making excuses to my family about why I couldn't make it to Sunday dinners. My mom would call me crying, asking what she'd done wrong. That broke my heart more than anything, but I couldn't tell her the truth. Derek had convinced me that if I told anyone, he'd know. He always seemed to know everything. 2 years in, Derek proposed. I said yes because I was afraid to say no, because by then he'd isolated me so completely that I didn't know how to leave. He'd convinced me no one else would want me, that I was lucky he put up with me. He'd tell me I was gaining weight, that my hair looked bad, that I dressed like a slob. He'd criticize everything about me until I started to believe maybe he was right. Maybe I was the problem. The engagement lasted 6 months before I finally started planning my escape. It was Jessica who made me see what was happening. She showed up at my apartment one day when Derek was at work. She hadn't called first because she knew I'd make an excuse not to see her. When I opened the door, she took one look at me and started crying. I was wearing sunglasses inside. My lip was split. I'd told Derek's mom I'd fallen down the stairs when she asked about it the day before. Jessica didn't buy it. She came inside, and for the first time in 2 years, I told someone the truth. She held me while I sobbed, told me this wasn't my fault, that I deserved better, that Derek was going to end up seriously hurting me if I didn't get out. She wanted me to leave with her right then, pack a bag and go, but I was terrified. Derek had started saying things, dark things, about what he'd do if I ever left him. He'd said he'd find me wherever I went, that he'd hurt the people I loved, that if he couldn't have me, no one would. He said it casually, like he was talking about the weather, but I could see in his eyes he meant every word. He'd told me specific things, said he knew where my parents lived, where my brothers worked, which school my nieces attended. He'd done his homework, made sure I knew he could get to anyone I cared about. Jessica made me promise I'd make a plan, that I wouldn't stay forever. She gave me her spare apartment key and told me I could come anytime, day or night, no questions asked. It took me 3 more months to work up the courage. I started moving things slowly. Important documents first. My grandmother's jewelry, photo albums. I'd take a bag to work and leave it in my car, then drop it at Jessica's on my lunch break. Derek never noticed. I opened a new bank account he didn't know about and started directing part of my paycheck there. It wasn't much, but it was something. I researched domestic violence shelters, read articles about leaving abusive relationships, learned about safety plans and exit strategies. Did it all on my work computer because Derek monitored everything at home. My coworkers started noticing changes in me. I'd been with the company for 5 years, and I used to be bubbly and social. But over my time with Derek, Derek, I'd become quiet and withdrawn. My boss, Linda, pulled me aside one day and asked if I was okay. I broke down, told her everything. She was amazing. Said she'd help however she could. Gave me her personal cell number and told me to call if I ever needed anything. Linda had escaped an abusive relationship years before. She knew what I was going through, understood the fear and the shame and the feeling of being trapped. She also told me something I needed to hear. She said leaving was the most dangerous time. That most women who are hurt or worse by abusive partners are hurt when they try to leave. She made me promise to be careful. I promised. The final straw came on a Tuesday night in April. We were watching TV and Derek was in one of his moods. I'd learned to read them by then. The set of his jaw, the way he'd clench and unclench his fists. I knew a storm was coming. He accused me of looking at my phone too much. I wasn't even on my phone. It was face down on the coffee table, but he grabbed it anyway and went through my messages. He found texts with Jessica. Nothing incriminating, just normal friend stuff. Plans to meet for coffee. Complaints about work. But Derek fixated on one message where Jessica had said, "You deserve better." Better than what? He wanted to know. Was I talking about him? Was I planning to leave? I denied it, but he could see through me. He'd always been able to tell when I was lying. He grabbed me by the throat and slammed me against the wall. He told me if I ever tried to leave, he'd kill my whole family, starting with my dad. He'd make me watch, he said. Then he'd kill me too. He described it in detail. How he'd do it, where he'd hide the bodies, how long it would take. His eyes were dead while he talked, like he was reading a grocery list. When he finally let go, I collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. There was blood in my mouth from where I'd bitten my tongue. He left the apartment, just walked out like nothing had happened. I sat on that floor for 20 minutes, shaking. Then I called Jessica. She picked up on the first ring. I could barely speak, but I managed to tell her I was ready. She told me to pack whatever I could carry and get out now while he was gone. I threw clothes into a bag with shaking hands, grabbed my laptop, my toothbrush, the few things I had left that mattered. I was halfway to the door when I heard his car pull up outside. My heart stopped. I ran to the bathroom and locked the door. Texted Jessica to call the police, told her what was happening. Derek came back inside. I could hear him walking through the apartment, calling my name. His voice was sing-song, almost playful. That scared me more than if he'd been yelling. When he found my bag by the door, he lost it. He pounded on the bathroom door so hard I thought it would break. Screamed that I was a liar, that I was trying to leave him after everything he'd done for me. He said he'd bought me things, taken me places, put up with my nonsense for years. Like that gave him ownership of me. The police arrived 12 minutes later. It felt like hours. I could hear Derek arguing with them through the door, telling them it was a misunderstanding, that his fiancée was having a mental health crisis and he was just trying to help her. But the officers weren't buying it. They'd been to our apartment before, 3 times in the past year for noise complaints from neighbors. They knew what was going on. They arrested Derek after he refused to calm down. I gave a statement, showed them the bruises on my neck. They took photos, asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. That night I stayed at Jessica's. She made up the spare room and brought me tea and didn't ask questions. Just let me sit on her couch and shake. I couldn't stop shaking. Even under 3 blankets, I was cold. Jessica sat with me until I finally fell asleep around 4 in the morning. Derek posted bail the next morning. He started calling immediately. Left voicemails that ranged from apologetic to threatening. The apologetic ones were almost worse. He'd cry and say he loved me, that he didn't mean it, that he'd change. But then the next message would be him screaming that I was a lying piece of garbage, that I'd ruined his life, that I'd pay for what I'd done. When I blocked his number, he created new ones, sent emails, made fake social media accounts to message me. I got a restraining order. The court granted it easily with the police report and my documented injuries. The judge told Derek if he came within 500 feet of me, he'd be arrested. But a piece of paper doesn't stop someone who's determined. Derek started showing up places. Outside my work, at the grocery store. He'd just stand there watching. Not technically violating the order because he stayed the required distance away, but making sure I knew he was there. I'd come out of work and see him across the street, leaning against his car, staring. He wouldn't move or say anything. Just stared until I got in my car and drove away. Linda started walking me to my car every night. Other coworkers did too. They formed a protective circle around me because they knew Derek wouldn't try anything with witnesses. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, jumped at every sound. Lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks. My clothes hung off me. I looked sick. Jessica convinced me to go stay with my family. She said Derek wouldn't dare show up there, not with my dad and brothers around. I wasn't so sure, but I was exhausted and scared and running out of options. I called my dad that night. I hadn't told him what was happening, hadn't wanted to worry him, hadn't wanted to admit I'd let things get this bad. But when he heard my voice crack on the phone, he knew something was wrong. I told him everything. The years of abuse, the threats, the restraining order, the constant feeling of being watched. My dad was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Come home, baby girl. We'll keep you safe." His voice cracked on the last word. My dad never cried, never showed weakness, but I could hear it in his voice. He was scared for me. I drove to Riverside the next day. Jessica came with me, helped me carry my few belongings inside. She'd taken the day off work to make sure I got there safely. My dad hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. My mom cried. My brothers Jake and Connor looked like they wanted to drive to the city and handle Derek themselves. I made them promise not to. The last thing I needed was them getting arrested for assault. Jake punched a wall after I left the room. I heard it from upstairs, heard Connor talking him down, heard my dad say they had to be smart about this, that going after Derek would only make things worse. The first week home was peaceful. I started to relax, started to think maybe Derek would give up, would move on. I should have known better. The messages started started getting darker. He'd somehow gotten my new phone number, texted me descriptions of my parents' house, details only someone who'd been watching would know, the color of the mailbox, the crack in the driveway, the wind chimes on the back porch. He knew where I was. He sent me photos too, of the house, of my dad's truck in the driveway, of my mom gardening in the backyard. He'd been here, been close enough to take pictures. I showed my dad the messages. He called the police, but they said unless Derek showed up in person, there wasn't much they could do. The messages were threatening, but vague enough that they didn't meet the threshold for violation of the restraining order. My dad wasn't satisfied with that answer. He was a Marine, remember? He knew how to protect his family. He sat me, my brothers, and my mom down at the kitchen table, told us we needed to be prepared. He didn't think Derek was bluffing, didn't think a restraining order would stop him. My dad owned guns, had taught all of us how to shoot when we were teenagers. Jake and Connor both had their concealed carry permits. My mom kept a pistol in her nightstand. They weren't taking any chances. We set up a system. No one went anywhere alone. Doors stayed locked. Security cameras were installed. My dad even put motion sensor lights around the entire property. He bought a guard dog too, a German Shepherd named Max. Max was trained for protection, and he took his job seriously. He'd bark at any unfamiliar car that drove by. Jake moved back home temporarily with his wife Katie and their 2 kids. Said he wasn't leaving until this was handled. Connor came over every day after work. They took turns keeping watch at night. My nephews thought it was an adventure at first, like camping indoors. But Katie and I both saw the fear in their eyes when they thought no one was looking. Kids are perceptive. They knew something was wrong. I felt like a prisoner, but a safe one. 2 weeks went by, then 3. No sign of Derek, but the messages kept coming. Promises of what he'd do when he found me alone. Descriptions of how he'd hurt my family if they got in his way. He sent detailed plans. Times when my dad went to the hardware store. Routes my mom took to the grocery store, where Connor's kids went to school. He'd been following all of them, learning their routines, planning. I barely slept. When I did, I had nightmares. Dreams where Derek broke into the house, where he hurt people I loved while I watched. I'd wake up screaming, covered in sweat. My mom would come in and hold me, tell me it was just a dream, but we both knew it might not stay that way. My mom tried to get me to eat, to talk, to leave the house, but I was paralyzed with fear. Every car that drove by made my heart race. Every unexpected sound made me jump. I stopped showering regularly, stopped brushing my hair, wore the same clothes for days. Depression hit me like a freight train. My mom finally insisted I see a doctor. She made the appointment and drove me there herself. The doctor prescribed medication for anxiety and depression, gave me a referral for a therapist. I started therapy the following week. My therapist, Dr. Martinez, was patient and kind. She didn't push me to talk about things before I was ready, just let me sit in her office and exist. Slowly, I started opening up, telling her about Derek, about the years of abuse, about the fear that consumed me now. She told me what I was experiencing was normal, that trauma rewires your brain, makes you hypervigilant and constantly on guard. She said healing would take time, but it was possible. I wanted to believe her. Jessica called every day to check on me. She said Derek had been by her apartment looking for me, banged on the door for an hour before her neighbors called the cops. He was served with another restraining order, this one for Jessica too. She'd gotten a security system installed, changed her locks, started parking in different places so he couldn't track her movements. He was spiraling, and I knew it was only a matter of time before he did something. My sister Melissa drove up from Florida to visit. She brought her 2 daughters, Emily and Sophie. They were 7 and 5, all blonde curls and innocent smiles. Melissa pulled me aside the first night. She looked at me for a long time, then hugged me and said, "I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner." I told her it wasn't her fault. Derek was good at hiding what he was, but she said she should have known, should have pushed harder when I started missing family events. We all have guilt about things we could have done differently, but guilt doesn't change the past. That something came on a Saturday in May. It was afternoon. My dad and brothers were working on the deck out back. My mom and I were inside making dinner. Katie was playing with her kids in the living room. Melissa was upstairs putting Emily and Sophie down for a nap. I heard gravel crunching in the driveway, looked out the window and saw a car I didn't recognize. A rental, I'd learn later. My stomach dropped. The driver's door opened and Derek stepped out. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept or showered in days. His eyes were wild, unfocused. He was wearing the same clothes I'd seen him in 2 weeks ago in a Facebook photo Jessica had shown me. His hair was greasy and unkempt. He had a beard he'd never had before, patchy and unkempt. He looked like a stranger, but I'd know those eyes anywhere. He started walking toward the house. I screamed for my dad. Everything happened so fast after that. My dad came running in from the back, Jake and Connor right behind him. They were covered in sawdust, work gloves still on. My mom grabbed Katie and the kids and rushed them upstairs with Melissa and the girls. She called 911 from upstairs, her voice shaking as she gave the address. Derek was pounding on the front door, screaming my name, saying he just wanted to talk, that if I'd just come out, everything would be okay, that he loved me, that we were meant to be together, that these people were poisoning me against him. Max was going crazy, barking and snarling at the door. My dad had to physically hold him back to keep him from going after Derek. My dad looked at me, asked if I was sure I wanted to do this. I knew what he meant. We could wait for the police, or we could handle it now. I nodded. My dad, Jake, and Connor all armed themselves. My dad had his service pistol, Jake had his 9mm. Connor grabbed the shotgun from the hall closet. They didn't go outside guns blazing. They weren't looking for a shootout, but they wanted Derek to know they were serious. My dad opened the door slowly, stepped out onto the porch with Jake and Connor flanking him. Derek looked past him, trying to see into the house, trying to find me. "I need to see Amber," he said. His voice was hoarse, desperate. I need to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to you, my dad said. His voice was calm but firm. You need to leave, now. Derek laughed. Actually laughed. Or what? You'll call the cops? She's my fiancé. I have a right to see her. She's not your fiancé anymore, Jake said from behind my dad. And you're violating a restraining order. Police are already on their way. Derek's expression changed. The fake calm dropped away, and I could see the rage underneath. You people have poisoned her against me, he snarled. She was fine until she came here. You made her think I'm some kind of monster. You are a monster, Connor said. We've seen the bruises, heard the threats. You're done. I was watching from the window, pressed against the wall where Derek couldn't see me, but I could see everything. Derek reached into his jacket, and everything froze. My dad raised his gun. So did Jake and Connor. 3 barrels pointed at Derek's chest. Don't, my dad said. Don't even think about it. Derek slowly pulled his hand out. He wasn't holding a weapon, just his phone. But the message was clear. One wrong move and this would end badly. I love her, Derek said, and his voice cracked. I love her more than anything. She's mine. She'll always be mine. Love doesn't look like what you did to her, my dad said. Real love doesn't leave bruises, doesn't make threats, doesn't terrorize. Derek's face twisted into something ugly. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know her like I do. She needs me. She's nothing without me. She's better without you, Jake said. She's healing. Getting stronger every day? Derek's eyes darted around and I could see him calculating, weighing his options. He was cornered, and he knew it. She told me she loved me, Derek said, his voice breaking. She said we'd be together forever. She promised. People are allowed to change their minds, Connor said, especially when they're being hurt. I never hurt her, Derek shouted. Everything I did was because I loved her. Don't you understand? I can't live without her. Then you need help, my dad said. Professional help, but you can't get it from her. We could hear sirens in the distance. Derek heard them too. His eyes darted around, looking for an escape route. But my dad and brothers had positioned themselves so he couldn't get past them into the house. And going back to his car meant turning his back on 3 armed men. He was trapped, and he knew it. This isn't over, Derek said to my dad. But he was looking past him, looking at me through the window where I was watching. You hear me, Amber? This isn't over. You're mine. You'll always be mine. Get off my property, my dad said. His voice was steel. Before I give my boys permission to remove you. The police arrived 3 minutes later. 4 cars, lights flashing. 8 officers emerged, hands on their weapons. Derek put his hands up immediately, dropped to his knees when they told him to. He wasn't stupid enough to give them a reason to shoot. They arrested him for violating the restraining order, searched his car with his consent, found a knife in his car, a big one, the kind you'd use for hunting, added a weapons charge. They also found zip ties, duct tape, and rope in his trunk, a tarp, garbage bags. My blood ran cold when I heard that. He'd been planning something terrible. His bail was set at $50,000 this time. He couldn't make it. I gave another statement to the police. So did my dad and brothers. Showed them all the messages, the threats, the photos he'd taken of our house. This time, the prosecutor said they had enough for more serious charges. Stalking, criminal threatening, assault charges from the night he strangled me. And now, based on what they found in his car, they were adding attempted kidnapping to the list. Derek's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, probation and mandatory counseling. The prosecutor refused, said they were going to trial. Derek spent 4 months in county jail waiting for his court date. During that time, I started putting my life back together. Went back to work remotely for my old company. Linda had held my position for me, said I could work from home as long as I needed. I started seeing Dr. Martinez twice a week instead of once. Started taking my medication regularly. Started doing the hard work of healing. Jessica visited every weekend. She'd bring wine and trashy magazines and make me laugh for the first time in what felt like years. She'd also bring updates about Derek, not because I asked, but because she thought I should know. He'd lost his job while in jail. His apartment had been foreclosed on. His friends had abandoned him. Part of me felt bad. A small part. The part that remembered the guy who opened doors and remembered my coffee order. But then I'd remember the bruises, the fear, the years of walking on eggshells. And that small part would shrivel up and die. My family was incredible. They never made me feel like a burden. Never said I should have left sooner or seen the signs earlier. They just loved me and supported me and kept me safe. My mom started teaching me to cook. Real cooking. Not just heating up frozen dinners like I'd done with Derek. We'd spend hours in the kitchen, making elaborate meals from scratch. It was therapeutic. Measuring ingredients, following recipes, creating something nourishing and good. My dad took me fishing. Something we used to do when I was a kid but hadn't done in years. We'd sit on the dock in comfortable silence, lines in the water, just existing together. He never pushed me to talk, but sometimes I would. I'd tell him about Derek, about things I'd never told anyone. And he'd listen without judgment. One day he said, I should have seen it. Should have driven up there and checked on you when you stopped coming around. I told him he couldn't have known, that I'd hidden it well. But he said a father should know when his daughter is hurting. We both cried that day, sitting on that dock with our fishing poles forgotten. The trial was in September. I had to testify. Had to sit on that stand and describe everything Derek had done to me. Every hit, every threat. Every time I'd been too scared to leave, the defense attorney tried to make me seem unreliable. Asked why I stayed if it was so bad. Implied I was exaggerating for attention. But the prosecutor was brilliant. She asked me to show my scars. The permanent ones. The place where Derek had broken my ribs and they'd healed wrong. The scar on my forehead from where he'd thrown a glass at me. The jury couldn't look away. Derek stared at me the whole time. His lawyer tried to get him to stop, but he wouldn't. Just stared with those dead eyes. I stared back. Didn't flinch. Didn't look away. The prosecutor called other witnesses witnesses too. Jessica, who testified about the times she'd seen me with bruises. My former neighbors who'd heard the fights. The police officers who'd responded to calls. Derek's lawyer tried to paint him as a man driven crazy by love, said I'd let him on, made him think we had a future, then abandoned him. The prosecutor countered with medical records. Police reports, photos, text messages, voicemails, an overwhelming mountain of evidence that Derek was dangerous and obsessed. The defense called character witnesses. Derek's mom took the stand, crying, saying her son had never been violent before me, that I must have triggered something in him. The prosecutor asked her if victim blaming was something she'd learned from her husband, Derek's father, the same husband who'd beaten her for years before finally leaving. Derek's mom left the stand in tears. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Derek's mom sobbed. My family hugged each other. Jessica squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. Derek just sat there expressionless, like he'd expected this outcome. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in prison. With good behavior, he could be out in 5. It wasn't forever, but it was something. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order. Derek would never be allowed to contact me again. If he tried, he'd go straight back to prison. Derek was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. He turned to look at me one last time. And you know what? I wasn't scared anymore. I looked him dead in the eye and didn't flinch. That was 6 months ago. I'm still living with my family. I'm not ready to be on my own yet, but I'm getting there. I got a new job in town, working at the local library. It's quiet and peaceful, and I'm surrounded by books. The library director, Margaret, is a sweet older woman who reminds me of my grandmother. She doesn't ask about my past, just smiles and brings me tea and tells me I'm doing a good job. I started dating again, though I'm taking it slow. Real slow. There's a guy who comes into the library every week. His name is Michael. He's an architect, works from home mostly, but comes to the library for a change of scenery. He started coming to my desk to check out books, started lingering to chat, asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I said yes. Jessica and I are closer than ever. She moved to Riverside last month, got a job at the elementary school teaching 2nd grade. Says she likes the small town vibe. Really, I think she moved to be close to me, to make sure I'm okay, and I love her for it. My therapist says I'm making good progress. The nightmares are less frequent. I can sleep through the night now. I don't jump at every sound. Dr. Martinez has become more than just my therapist. She's someone I trust. Someone who's seen me at my lowest and never judged me for it. We're working through PTSD symptoms, learning coping mechanisms, identifying triggers and how to handle them. It's hard work. Some days I feel like I'm taking 2 steps back for every step forward. But Dr. Martinez reminds me that healing isn't linear. But here's the thing they don't tell you about leaving an abusive relationship. Even when you're safe, even when he's locked up, there's still this part of you that's waiting for the other shoe to drop. I know Derek will get out someday. I know he might come looking for me again. But I'm not the same person I was when I met him. I'm not even the same person I was when I left. I'm stronger now, braver, and I have people who will fight for me. My dad installed a gun safe in my room, taught me how to clean and maintain my own pistol, said every woman should know how to protect herself. Jake and Connor take me to the range twice a month. I'm getting pretty good, better than good actually. Jake says I'm a natural, that my groupings are tighter than his. I'm not saying I'm looking for a confrontation. I hope I never see Derek again after he's released. But if I do, I won't be defenseless. Last week I got a letter from Derek. He's allowed to send mail from prison, though my lawyer is trying to get that stopped. It wasn't threatening this time. It was apologetic. Said he'd been going to anger management classes, seeing a therapist, claimed he understood now what he'd put me through. He said he knew I'd never forgive him, that he didn't deserve forgiveness. But he wanted me to know he was sorry. He asked if I could write back, just once. So he'd know I'd read it. I burned the letter. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. Some people don't get a redemption arc. And I don't owe him closure or peace of mind. My therapist asked me how I felt after burning it. I told her the truth. I felt free. There are still hard days. Days where I wonder if I could have done something differently. If I could have fixed him, saved him. My therapist reminds me that wasn't my job. That I'm not responsible for his choices or his actions. She's right. I know she is. But knowing something and feeling it are 2 different things. My mom has been amazing through all of this. She doesn't push me to talk when I don't want to. Doesn't hover or treat me like I'm broken. She just makes sure I eat breakfast and tells me she loves me, and that's enough. Sometimes I catch her looking at me with this sad expression, like she's mourning the years I lost. The person I could have been if I'd never met Derek. I tell her I'm okay, that I'm here and I'm alive, and that's what matters. She hugs me and doesn't say anything, but I know she understands. My sister Melissa came to visit last month. She has 2 little girls now, Emily and Sophie. Watching them run around the yard made me think about the future, about the life I want to have someday. I want kids, want a family, want to fall in love with someone who's kind and patient and doesn't make me afraid. I wasn't sure I'd ever feel that way again, but I'm starting to think maybe it's possible. Emily asked me one day why I lived with Grandma and Grandpa instead of having my own house. She's 7, old enough to be curious. I told her I was staying here for a while because I liked being close to family. She accepted that answer and moved on to asking if I wanted to play dolls. Kids are resilient like that. They don't dwell on things the way adults do. Michael and I have been on 4 dates now. Real dates. Dinner, movies, walks in the park. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice. It feels safe. He knows about Derek. Everyone in Riverside does at this point. The trial made the local news. But Michael's never treated me like I'm damaged goods or like I need rescuing. He just treats me like a person. That's all I want. To be seen as a whole person, not just as a survivor or a victim or an ex-girlfriend of a dangerous dangerous person. On our last date, Michael took me to a driving range, said he'd heard I was getting good with firearms and wondered if I had good aim in other areas too. It was sweet, silly, normal. We hit golf balls for an hour, laughing when mine went wildly off course. He didn't try to teach me or show off, just let me figure it out on my own. Afterward, he bought me ice cream and walked me to my car, kissed me on the cheek and asked if I wanted to do it again. I said yes. I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece. It's slow work. Some days I feel like I'm making progress. Other days I feel like I'm right back where I started, but I'm doing it. I'm here. I survived, and that has to count for something. The other day, I was helping my dad work on the deck again. He'd been wanting to finish it since that day in May, but kept putting it off. Said it didn't feel right to finish it without me. We were hammering in boards, and he looked over at me and said, "I'm proud of you." I asked him why. I hadn't done anything special, just survived. He said, "Surviving is everything. You got out. You're still here." That takes more courage than anything I ever did in the service, I cried. Right there on the deck with a hammer in my hand and nails scattered around my feet. My dad hugged me and told me it was okay, that I was safe now, that I'd always be safe with him. I believed him. Jessica and I went out last Friday night. First time I'd been to a bar since I left Derek. I was nervous, but she promised we'd leave if I felt uncomfortable. We had one drink, played pool, laughed at stupid jokes. A guy tried to buy me a drink and I said no thank you. He said okay and walked away. No drama, no anger, just acceptance. It was such a small thing, but it felt huge. Proof that not all men are like Derek, that normal, healthy interactions exist. I texted Jessica later that night and told her I had fun. She sent back about 50 celebration emojis and told me she was proud of me. My brothers are protective, but not overbearing. They check in without making me feel smothered. Jake taught his oldest daughter, Emma, to shoot last weekend. Said he wants all his kids to know how to be safe. Emma is 12 now, old enough to understand why her uncle is teaching her. She's a natural, just like her aunt. I think about Derek and wonder if his parents saw the signs when he was young, if they could have done something different. But that's not productive. Everyone makes their own choices. Connor's been asking if I want to go back to the city eventually. Get my own place. Start over fresh. I told him maybe someday, but not yet. I'm not ready. Riverside feels like home now in a way it didn't before. I know my neighbors. Wave to familiar faces at the grocery store. There's comfort in that. Mrs. Henderson from down the street brings me cookies every Sunday. Says I'm too skinny and need to eat more. I don't have the heart to tell her I've actually gained back most of the weight I lost. The prosecutor called me last month. Said Derek's lawyer is appealing the sentence, trying to get it reduced. She said not to worry, that the evidence was solid and the appeal would likely be denied. But it reminded me that this isn't completely over. Won't be for years. Maybe not ever. There's a part of me that will always be looking over my shoulder, always wondering if he's out, if he's coming, if today's the day he shows up again. My therapist says that's normal, that hypervigilance is a trauma response, that it might fade over time but might never completely go away. I'm okay with that. If being a little paranoid keeps me safe, then I'll be paranoid. I've started writing about my experience, not for publication or anything, just for me. My therapist suggested it might help process everything. It does. Getting it all out on paper makes it feel less heavy somehow, like I'm putting distance between me and what happened. Maybe someday I'll share it, help someone else who's in the situation I was in. Let them know it's possible to get out, to survive, but that's future Amber's problem. Present Amber is just focused on getting through each day. My mom planted a garden this spring, vegetables and flowers. She asked if I wanted to help. We spent afternoons with our hands in the dirt, planting seeds, pulling weeds. There's something healing about watching things grow, about nurturing something and seeing it bloom. The tomatoes came in last week. My mom made sauce from scratch and we canned it together. Rows and rows of jars lined up in the pantry. She said we'd made enough to last through winter. I like the idea of that. Planning for the future. Assuming I'd still be here, I started going to church again. Not because I'm particularly religious, but because the community feels good. People smile and wave, ask how I'm doing, and actually mean it. The pastor knows my story. Came to the house to check on me after the trial. Didn't preach or judge, just listened. He told me about a women's support group that meets on Tuesday nights. Said I might find it helpful to talk to others who'd been through similar things. I went last week. Sat in a circle with 6 other women, all survivors of domestic violence. Heard their stories. Told mine. It was hard, hearing that I wasn't alone, that this happens to so many women. But it was also comforting. One woman, Diana, had left her husband 15 years ago. She said the fear never completely goes away, but it gets quieter. That eventually you have more good days than bad. I'm holding on to that. Life is slowly becoming normal again. Or a new kind of normal. I don't know if I'll ever get back to who I was before Derek. That person feels like a stranger now, but maybe that's okay. Maybe I'm not supposed to go back. Maybe I'm supposed to move forward as someone different, someone stronger. Jake's wife, Katie, has become a good friend. She takes me shopping, includes me in family dinners, treats me like the sister she never had. Her kids call me Aunt Amber, ask me to read them bedtime stories and play games. Their innocence is refreshing. They don't know about the darkness in the world yet. I hope they never have to. Emma, Jake's daughter, confided in me last week. Said there's a boy at school who makes her uncomfortable, that he follows her around and won't leave her alone when she asks. I told her to trust her instincts, that if someone makes her uncomfortable, she should tell an adult, that she never owes anyone her time or attention just to be polite. Jake and I had a talk with the school. They're handling it, but I was proud of Emma for speaking up. I got a call from Derek's mom a few weeks ago. She wanted to apologize. Said she didn't know how bad things were, that if she'd known, she would have done something. I appreciated the gesture, but I didn't need her apology. Derek's actions weren't her fault. She asked if I hated him. I told her honestly that I didn't. Hate requires energy I don't want to waste on him anymore. I just wanted him out of my life, wanted to move on. She understood. She told me she was getting help too. Therapy for enabling his behavior, for not seeing what he was becoming. I wished her well, meant it. She was a victim of Derek's father just like I was a victim of Derek. The cycle of abuse is insidious. The seasons are changing. Fall is coming. Leaves turning gold and red. The air getting crisp. I used to love this time of year. Derek ruined it by proposing in October, but I'm reclaiming it, making new memories that aren't tainted by him. Last weekend, my family went to a pumpkin patch. Melissa drove up with the girls. We took embarrassing photos and drank hot cider and acted like everything was fine. And you know what? For a few hours, everything was fine. My dad noticed me smiling. Really smiling. Not the fake one I'd been wearing for years. He squeezed my shoulder and didn't say anything. Didn't need to. That night, sitting around the dinner table with everyone I love, I realized something. Derek tried to destroy me. Tried to break me down until there was nothing left. But he failed. I'm still here. Still fighting. Still living. And that's my revenge. Not some dramatic confrontation or clever plot. Just existing. Just refusing to let him win. The restraining order is permanent. Derek isn't allowed to contact me ever again. If he violates it when he gets out, he goes back to prison. No questions asked. My dad says he won't risk it. That 8 years inside will make him think twice. I want to believe that, but I know Derek. Know how obsessed he can get, so I stay prepared. Stay vigilant. Live my life but keep my guard up. Is it exhausting? Sometimes, but it's also empowering. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor, and there's a difference. I've learned to set boundaries, to say no without feeling guilty, to put myself first. These sound like simple things, but they're revolutionary for someone who spent years making herself small to keep the peace. Michael from work asked me on a real date last week. Not coffee, an actual dinner date. I said yes. Jessica helped me pick out an outfit. Told me to have fun and not overthink it. Easy for her to say, but the date was nice. Michael was a perfect gentleman. Walked me to my door and didn't expect anything. Just said he had a good time and wanted to do it again. We're going out again this weekend. To a concert. I haven't been to a concert in years. I'm taking it slow. Really slow. But maybe that's exactly what I need. My therapist says it's healthy that I'm open to dating again. That it shows I haven't let Derek's abuse close me off completely. She's right. I refuse to let him take anything else from me. Not my ability to trust. Not my capacity to love. Nothing. He's taken enough. Winter is coming and I'm looking forward to the holidays. My family goes all out for Christmas. Decorations and cookies and way too much food. Last year I missed it because Derek picked a fight and I couldn't leave. This year I'll be there, front and center, making memories and eating too much pie. My mom is already planning the menu. She asks my opinion on everything. What kind of stuffing I want, whether we should do ham or turkey. It feels good to be included. These are the things I focus on now. The good stuff. The moments that make life worth living. Not the what ifs or the maybes or the fear of Derek getting out someday. Just today. Just this moment. Just the knowledge that I'm free. And you know what? That's enough. More than enough. It's everything. I'm learning to trust my instincts again. To listen to that voice inside that tells me when something's wrong. Derek spent years convincing me that voice was lying. That I was overreacting. Being dramatic. But that voice was right. It was trying to protect me. I just wasn't listening. Now I listen. When something feels off, I pay attention. When someone makes me uncomfortable, I don't make excuses for them. It's a work in progress. But I'm getting there. I volunteer at the domestic violence shelter now. Just a few hours a week. Answering phones. Sorting donations. Nothing major. But being there, seeing women in the same situation I was in, reminds me how far I've come. How much I've survived. One woman, Angela, came in last week with her 2 kids. She had a black eye and a split lip. I saw myself in her. I made her tea. Sat with her while she cried. Told her she was brave for leaving. That things would get better. She asked me how I knew. I showed her the faded scar on my forehead. Told her I'd been where she was. That I'd made it out. She cried harder. But I could see hope in her eyes. Hope that if I could do it, maybe she could too. The shelter coordinator, Maria, said I'm a natural. That I should consider getting certified as a peer counselor. I'm thinking about it. Using my experience to help others feels right. Like maybe all this pain served a purpose. Jessica is dating someone new. A teacher at her school. His name is Tom and he seems nice. They've been together for 3 months now. She brought him to Sunday dinner last week. My family interrogated him like he was joining the mob. Tom handled it well. Made jokes, complimented my mom's cooking, talked sports with my dad and brothers. Jessica pulled me aside afterward and asked what I thought. I told her he seemed great, that she deserved someone who treats her well. She said she was nervous about me meeting him, didn't want to rub her happiness in my face when I was still healing. I told her not to be ridiculous, that I was happy for her, that seeing her in a healthy relationship gave me hope, and I meant it. Connor got engaged last month to his girlfriend of 5 years, Rachel. The wedding is next summer, and I'm going to be a bridesmaid. Rachel asked me to help her pick out her dress. We spent a whole day going from shop to shop trying on options. It was fun. Normal girl stuff, the kind of thing I used to do before Derek. Rachel found the perfect dress. Elegant and simple. She looked beautiful in it. She asked me if I was okay. If wedding planning brought up bad memories of my own failed engagement. I told her honestly that it did, a little, but that I was working through it, that I was happy for her and Connor. She hugged me and said I was the strongest person she knew. I didn't feel strong, but maybe that's what strength looks like. Just keeping going even when it's hard. The holidays came fast. Thanksgiving was beautiful. The whole family together. 20 people crammed around tables, laughing and eating and being grateful. I gave a toast. Thanked everyone for supporting me, for keeping me safe, for loving me through the worst time of my life. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. My dad stood up after and said he was grateful I was still here, that he'd been terrified he was going to lose me. We all cried. Even Jake and Connor, who hate showing emotion. It was perfect. The kind of moment you remember forever. Christmas was even better. We did Secret Santa and I got Melissa. I bought her a spa day because she never takes time for herself. She cried when she opened it, said it was perfect. I got a new journal from whoever had me. It was leather bound and beautiful. The perfect place to keep writing my story. Michael came over for Christmas dinner. My family welcomed him like he'd always been part of it. My dad talked his ear off about architecture. My mom kept piling food on his plate. He fit in seamlessly. Helped clean up afterward without being asked. Played with the kids. Made everyone laugh. After dinner, we sat on the porch together, bundled in blankets against the cold. He told me he was falling for me, that he knew we were taking things slow, but he wanted me to know how he felt. I told him I was scared. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared of trusting someone new. He said he understood. That we could keep going at whatever pace I needed. That he wasn't going anywhere. I kissed him. Right there on the porch with Christmas lights twinkling around us. It felt right, safe, good, different from anything I'd felt with Derek. This was gentle, patient, real. New Year's Eve, Jessica threw a party. Nothing crazy, just close friends and family. We counted down to midnight, popped champagne, made resolutions. Mine was simple. Keep healing. Keep moving forward. Keep choosing myself. When the clock struck 12, Michael kissed me. Jessica cheered. My family clapped. It felt like a new beginning. A fresh start. The year ahead felt full of possibility instead of fear. That alone felt like a miracle. January came with cold and snow. I loved it. Watching the world turn white and clean. Like a blank slate, Derek's appeal was denied. The prosecutor called to tell me. Said his sentence would stand. 8 years, possibly less with good behavior. Part of me wished it was longer. Wished he'd never get out. But I'd take what I could get. I'm learning that justice isn't always satisfying. Sometimes it's just adequate. Good enough. I'm okay with that now. I don't need perfect closure. Just safety. Michael and I have been together for 5 months now. It's the healthiest relationship I've ever had. He respects my boundaries. Checks in about how I'm feeling. Never pushes me for more than I'm ready to give. We're talking about me getting my own place eventually. Maybe an apartment in town. Close to my family but independent. The thought scares me. But it also excites me. Proof that I'm ready to take that next step. My therapist agrees. Says I've made incredible progress. That I'm ready to start living on my own terms again. I found a place last week. A cute 1-bedroom apartment above a bookstore. It's perfect. I move in next month. My family is helping me furnish it. Jake is building me a bookshelf. My mom bought me dishes and linens. Connor got me a security system. Michael offered to help me move. Said he'd be there whatever I needed. I said yes. I'm terrified and excited and hopeful all at once. It feels like stepping into my future. The one I'm building for myself. The one Derek tried to take from me but couldn't because I'm still here. Still surviving. Still choosing life every single day. And that's my happy ending. Not perfect. Not tied up in a bow. But mine. Completely and utterly mine.